Welcome back to the Painting Coach. In this week's video, we're going to do something a little bit different. And I'm going to show you how to paint any miniature using only 5 colours. Alright, 5 colours. This is going to be a really good challenge and I really hope you learn something. I really hope you enjoy the video. Now the whole point of my channel existing is to fill that gap between what you see on the website and what you see on the box art to versus what you can actually produce and put on your tabletop. There's a big gap in between and I hope that some of the tips and techniques I share with you help you fill that. Now I do sometimes get criticised in my videos for the amount of paint I use, and that's understandable I suppose from a cost point of view. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're buying a whole army, then you're going to buy lots of that paint anyway, so it's not such an issue. However, there are still some haters out there, so hopefully this video will show you how to produce something with much less colours. Now, the other reason I want to do this, I want to challenge myself and I'll push my skills, because I think that's something that I always like to do as an artist, is try and get better and better and better. And certainly having the channel has forced me to do that and think about new ways of doing things. And the last reason really is really inspired by a guy called Marco Frazzoni. Now you may have heard of Marco, you may follow him, you may subscribe to him, you may be in his Patreon. He's a fantastic artist who comes up with some really good hacks, tips, techniques, and he's got a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge he wants to share. And this video is really coming out of one he did on colour theory, which I think was really inspirational. So I really hope you enjoy it. Check out Marco, I'll put his links in the description. If you want to support me, there's links for that in the description as well. Otherwise, let's get over to the palette and we'll have a good time. See you soon. So I'm sure you're wondering what these colours are. So without any further ado, ta-da! These are the 5 colours we're going to use to paint any miniature. So what have we got? We've got magenta, we've got cyan, we've got cold yellow, we've got white, and we've got black. So like I said, I can use different brands. So the black is Kimera Kolors Carbon Black. The magenta is Kimera Kolors Magenta. The yellow is Kimera Kolors Cold Yellow. The white is Heavy Body Schminke Titanium White, and then the blue or the cyan is Golden Acrylic Primary Cyan. So these are the 5 colours. Now you might be wondering how the heck are we going to paint anything, but essentially we're going to mix all these colours. Remember I said this is probably not the best thing for an army, but let's have a little look at how some of these colours interact. So if I take some of that cold yellow and put a dot of cyan into it, we get an orangey colour, we get a warmer orangey colour. Now, if I put a little bit of white in to that, you can see that there's easy to form different, different tones, different shades, etc. So what if we mix some of that magenta, just put it there, with a little bit of cyan, you get a nice dark purple, put some more cyan into it, you get a nice darker blue. You mix it in properly, you're not going to be far off like a McCrag blue or an ultramarine blue there, if you mix that up properly, which is a really nice effect. Similarly, the reason for kind of using this yellow and this blue, you notice there's no green on there, but if I mix those two together, look at that for a green. That's a really nice bright green, which is kind of hard to achieve if you use just like red, blue and yellow. And then you can just play with those tones, you can make it darker, more bluey, you can make it a lot lighter, you can desaturate it by adding some white into it, or you can saturate it a bit by adding some black in. So you can really see there, obviously adding that black in is probably a bit too much, but you can really see how you can start to make lots of different colours. So what about a skin tone, for example? And well, let's look at a skin tone, like a Caucasian skin tone. So let's take a bit of yellow, take a little bit of magenta, and we get that really nice warm colour. So that'll be fantastic for the base of a skin tone. What we can then do is maybe if we take some white and mix that in, and continue to add more, mix more white into it, we start to develop that kind of Caucasian skin tone, or kind of like a Mediterranean type skin tone. And maybe for the shadows we just want to, it's probably a bit much, but maybe we just want to add a little bit of blue in, just to get a kind of hint of green in there for the kind of the darkest part, just like that, which is really nice. So what we'll do then is we'll have a little look about how this applies to minis. I'm going to move the palette across, we'll pull a mini on the screen, and we'll have a look at painting a colour on it. So this is a model that you may have seen me painting before. If you've seen some of my shorts, you may have seen me using the Citadel paints to achieve this look on here. Well, how could we perhaps do that using these colours we've mixed ourselves then? Well, quite simply, you know, we mix it up there. So this is our kind of pseudo ultramarine colour, which we're just going to pop on as a base. We'll build it up and then we'll come back, and we're going to paint this in exactly the same way. So I'll speed up the footage so you can see me working through it, and then I'll have a look at where we are, and we can have a look at adding highlights and shade as well, just using these colours. So now that we've got the base down, it's fairly similar to the Macragge blue I used on the other side. We want to make a little bit of a kind of much darker blue to go into the recesses, and we want to thin this down a decent amount. So I've got all this palette room, and I've managed to park myself into a into a small corner in terms of the tones. So you can see it's nice and thin. And again, what we're going to do is just when we address the model, we're just going to paint this into the recesses to get those dark lines. So this is kind of the equivalent of washing the model. So obviously it'll take a little bit longer, but the whole point of it is we're only using those 5 colours. And at the end of it, we're going to have something very similar to the other leg. And then I'll show you on some other miniatures as well how we can use those 5 colours. And it could just be that you use them to vary the tone on something, so you don't have the same, you know, skin tone, etc. So there we are, get that done, and then we'll come back and we'll highlight it and have a look at the final effect of using these colours to mix our own ultramarine armour equivalent. So I've just made a fresh mix there, but what we'll do is we're going to move through the kind of the highlights now. So you think what we'll be doing to be kind of a Caledor blue colour. So I've just added a touch of white in, and you can see that's not far off Caledor blue. And then the next highlight on that will be a bit of Frisian grey. So just mix that in there ahead of time. So what you can do then is you can go ahead and just catch some of these edges on the model. Make sure that I'm in focus. And then you just go to that lighter colour for the final highlight and just catch those sharpest edges really on the model. So I'm going to finish this off and then we'll compare the two before having a go at another one. So there we go, you can see I've not done it in full detail, so it's probably a little darker, probably a little more vivid, probably more saturated than perhaps the original I did using the colours, but you can see you can get a decent effect. So let's have a look at producing something else then. Let's have a look at maybe a red, for example. So if we have a look at this model, the first thing I do is just take some of that magenta. I'm going to paint this on the area that's going to be red. So we're using that cloak, for example, and we'll have this as the kind of the shadow colour, as it were. So I'm just popping it on quite roughly. And then once I've got that sorted, I'm just going to clean my brush off. I'm going to move back to the palette. Just going to take a little bit of magenta, pop it there, and just a touch of yellow. You can see it's starting to brighten that up. And it's starting to become, it's kind of like a corn red now. And then we're starting to get that kind of less saturated red, which we can use then to paint on some of the highlights of layers on this cloak. And because I'm working fast, you can see it's blending in because I'm working over wet paint, so just got to work a bit harder to get the new red to show through. So I'm going to carry on working on this, and then we'll come back, we'll finish it off with some more highlights next. Then to finish off the highlights, just add a little bit more yellow in, and then we've got sort of a kind of an orangey colour we can use for those kind of extreme edge highlights just along there. And that gives us a really dark worn red, which is kind of different to perhaps some of the other reds, but essentially it's the same kind of tone that we'd work with. You know, if you look around that, those cloaks are pretty much going the same colour, and this one is done all with Citadel paints. This one I've just mixed them up myself. So I mean, if you look at the palette and you want a brighter red, then the key to do that is you start with the kind of the cold yellow, and then you add a little bit of more magenta in that way, and you can just keep balancing it up until you get that brighter red that you're looking for. So that's that done. How about a green then? Let's look at a green next. So the model we'll use to kind of demonstrate the green is Calathis, the exile from Cursed City. So take a little bit of that cold yellow and a little bit of that blue and see where we are with that green. So that's not a bad colour, maybe a little bit more yellow in there. That's probably getting more to it. So in terms of Citadel colour, this is kind of looking more like a warp lightning. So again, if I wanted to apply that on to the model, see it's a different colour to the less saturated ones I've used. And if I wanted to darken that up, maybe just a little touch of magenta in there, which kind of gives you that darker green that we can then use to perhaps go in and line the model. And then we can just keep building that up. If we wanted to add a little bit of white into it, like I said, that'll desaturate quite a bit, but if that helps us with some of the highlighting that we want to do around the model. So you can see it's even nice, even with a nice green like that, you can still go ahead and create something pretty cool. So we've covered blue, we've covered green, we've covered red. Let's have a little look at yellow next. So this model is again another one that I've used as one of my shorts to show you how to do Imperial Fist armor. So I've added some more cold yellow to the palette, so just take it down there like that, then just a touch, tiny touch of magenta, tiny touch of white, and we get that kind of rich orangey yellowy base coat that reminds us of that Iriel yellow that we used. So again, we can paint this on again like the Iriel yellow. It's nice and thin, so we can just pop it on, build up those layers. And then once we've built up those layers, we can come back, shade it and highlight it, and then we can compare it with the original. So we've got a very similar colour to that Iriel yellow we used previously. Well, how about making a wash to go in there? So what we're going to do is we want to just make this kind of more of a flesh colour. We just want to add some water to it. You can see there we've got a kind of maybe not as brown as perhaps we want it. Maybe a touch of blue in there. There we are. So that gives us that kind of dark flesh shade in a wash consistency. And again, without having too much on your brush, and a good point, what we're going to look to do is we're just going to paint this in the recesses. I'm probably going a bit rougher and a bit quicker than I did previously, because again, this is just kind of a demonstration of how you could potentially use just the 5 colours to paint things. So work your way, or I'm working my way around getting this all lined. You can go in and tidy it after if you're not happy with it. I'll get that done, come back, and then we'll highlight it next and do another comparison. So the first highlight we do on the model will just be the plain cold yellow. Just there, you can see it's a lighter colour. And look, you just want to edge these areas to bring out some of the lighter colours. I think this is a kind of darker, warmer yellow than perhaps we've used previously, but it's just as effective. And then I'd be highlighting with Dawn Yellow or something very similar to this. I've just added some white into that cold yellow to catch those sharpest edges. And that's what we come up with. So again, it's a little darker, a little warmer, but actually it's not too far off. So we're going good guns. So I think we'll probably answer the big question next. And what about silvers and golds? What about metallics? That's probably the one thing we haven't covered. So we'll have a look at that next. So let's have a look at our faithful ultramarine for a start. And what you can see on the palette here, I've just taken the black and the white and mixed kind of lots of different shades of grey in there. So what I'm going to do is I want to just take like a middle grey just to sort of base this in. You can see it's fairly thin, which is fine, it's okay. So I've got a couple of options now while we wait for that to dry. Make sure our brush is cleaner. We can take one of these much darker greys that have been mixed with the black. We can perhaps move that to create some shadow within these recessed areas. Just there. We may also want to say that, you know what, I want to create a little bit of shadow at the bottom of these bits that jump out as well. Just there. And then we might want to just take a lighter colour, a much lighter grey. Sort of one of these here perhaps. And just use that to kind of top off and highlight some of these colours. Like that. And we let that dry, and then we can come back, we can tidy it up. So the way we tidy this up is we've kind of got our rough sketches in there, and we just want to work some of these greys in now, and lighter and darker ones, and make sure we haven't got too much on our brush, and we can just start to cover up and feather in some of these areas. So you start to get that kind of blend between the two, which kind of looks a little more natural. I'm not the world's best at non-metallic metal. You can probably see from that I'm very far from it. But you get the rough idea. You can create non-metallic metals, non-metallic silver with, again, just with black and white. You don't need any additional colours if you don't think you need them. So you can just, you know, as with everything, you can work this until, you know, the cows come home, really. It's just a case of making sure that you're happy with what you've got, and then refining it and learning and getting better. So I'll finish this off here, and then we'll just kind of have a little quick look now. So you can see there, that's the non-metallic done. Again, it's not perfect, but it shows you can do it. So we've had a look at different paints. Let's have a look at Games Workshop next. So back to the palette we go. So let's have a look at the colours we've got from Citadel. So we've got White Scar, Abaddon Black, and we've got Flash Gitz Yellow, which you can see is not quite as cold as that one, as the cold yellow from Kimera. We've got Caledor Sky, which is not a bad match for the primary Cyan, and then we've got Vorbak Red, which is a little desaturated compared to the Magenta from Kimera Kolors. But the reason I wanted to use these colours is just to kind of briefly show, can we do the same kinds of things? And, you know, looking at this, we're not, you know, too far off. Just kind of adding in different shades of green there, bit of Vorbak Red to maybe darken it, so we can create that nice bright green that we had previously. How about that yellow we had? So take a lot of that yellow, and again touch a Vorbak Red into it, and you can see because of the Vorbak Red, it's not quite the same effect. It's kind of a browner yellow, but certainly adding in the White Scar, we can get a brighter colour. And then lastly, let's have a look at the blue. So if we take the Caledor Sky, we add a touch of Vorbak Red to it, we can get that. In fact, we're kind of going down the road of more maybe like a Canto type blue here as well. So we've got everything in there in terms of that. And if we just add that White Scar in on the end there, you can see we get that much brighter colour. So my palette's a bit, it's very wet. This is the new Red Grass Games palette. So I hope, you know, you've learned something from watching this. I've just learned that I put too much water onto the palette there, but certainly, you know, you can make lots of different colours using them this way. And that's just several there. You can work more into it. So those are the kind of the Citadel equivalents. Obviously, like I said at the start, you don't really want to use this for a full army because you're not going to get the consistency. You just look at all the different colours that I've got on there. And one of the big challenges is keeping the paint alive. So if I have a look at this paint here, for example, that wash I made, it's very, that's pretty much dried up. So I need to get the, get the palette cleaned up. So you can do that if you want. Obviously, take something like a Retributor armor colour if you wanted to have a base gold. And interesting actually, if I throw this down, just a little bit of Retributor armor there, there's a couple of things you can then do with that Retributor armor using the colours on the palette if you didn't want to buy more. So if I take some of that white scar and mix it in, you can see I'm getting a brighter gold colour. Similarly, if I mix that black in, get a darker kind of messy gold colour which might sit underneath as kind of like a shadow colour. So you can mix, non-metallics and metallics together however you like. But like I said, hopefully you enjoyed this video. I've shown you how to paint a miniature with only 5 colours. We've got some decent results. Again, they're not perfect, and I hope that just reinforces, guys, why I use several paints on a painting video. Is because actually gives you that consistency. It helps you learn how the different colours interact with each other. Something like this isn't easy to learn. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I've got a lot of work to do in terms of learning how to do this effectively. So thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll just wrap up now. So there we have it. Now you know how to paint any miniature using only 5 colours. Of course, if you want to add some in, I showed you that in the video as well. So maybe if you want to put a silver and a gold metallic, that might help things along, especially if you're a beginner painter. Now, I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like and a comment down below. It really does help me make sure I'm producing the kind of content that you want to see. If you want to see more videos like this with a talking head, I know you all enjoy the shorts, so I'm going to keep doing those, and I'm going to keep doing those new release videos as well. So thank you so much for your support. If you would like to support me further, you can do so using the links in the description. There's the link for Patreon, where you get exclusive access to me via Discord, as well as a monthly live frequently asked questions show on YouTube, as well as some other little bit of exclusive content and tidbits as well. There's also the links for Goblin Gaming, where you can get up to 20% of all your wargaming needs. It's not just Warhammer, they've got Bolt Action, Star Wars Legion, a huge array of products. And lastly, there's my Amazon recommended equipment links, where you can see the kind of products that I use in the videos. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.